Hello, hello. This is exciting for Tuesday to get together and drink some whiskey. So, hello, everyone. My name is Jenne, and I am the West Coast representative of the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society of America. And I'm here today to talk about some amazing whiskeys that we have and to kind of drop some little knowledge morsels in between tasting of these four really great whiskeys. So, thank you all very much for tuning in and hanging out. And so kind of the agenda for this little masterclass is we are going to be talking about our Purist bundle that we put out for our June Outturn. And that includes 4 different whiskeys, which I found to be more kind of malt forward, not having really heavy influence from cask or double maturation or anything like that. It is just more kind of whiskey in its raw form. I found these to be a little more expressive and alive in the malt, kind of section of these whiskeys. And so we're going to highlight those today and talk about those. So if you have those whiskeys out there, please grab them and grab some glasses and some water, and we will kick this thing off. And drink some great whiskeys with great people here on a Tuesday afternoon. So hello, Daniel. It's nice to see you here. And C.R. Jensen. Hello. Yes, Scotch Talk. We are going to have at least a good hour of Scotch Talk today. So again, what we're going to do is we are going to go over our Purist bundle that was part of our June Outturn. And that is 4 different whiskeys and 4 different flavor profiles and 4 different ages, I believe. Yeah, 4 different ages and 3 different cask types. So we're just going to kind of go through and talk about each one and just enhance our whiskey knowledge here to, kind of help bring more appreciation and more awareness to what it is we're drinking. So I guess with that, I'm ready to kind of kick this off and have a whiskey. It is 4:00 here on the West Coast, which I believe is great whiskey drinking time. So wherever you are in the world, wherever you are watching, I hope it's whiskey time where you are as well. So again, grab a glass and let's kick this thing off. So we put together these bundles for our June Outturn just to kind of highlight some of the kind of fun nuances in Scotch whiskey. So the class that I'm going to be giving today is, again, more of a malt forward profile type of class about these whiskeys. And then my colleague Zach will be giving one tomorrow called the Tastemaker bundle that we had offered. And that's all in double maturation, which is also very exciting. And then Ben will be giving one on peat. I know we had to fight for that. I mean, we really had to duke it out, from here to Chicago on who was going to give the peat talk. But, I thought I'll let Ben have this one. So he's going to be talking about all things peat on Thursday. And so, again, if you have any of those bundles, make sure you tune in and sip along with them. It should be a good time. So to kind of kick this off, let's start with whiskey number 1. So whiskey number 1 is cask number 12.35, and that is Meringues Floating Over Gardens. That's such a, pretty name. So I don't know if you can see the bottle here. But this is an 8-year, so a little on the younger side. And actually, this is the youngest whiskey we're going to taste today. And this is an 8-year Speyside in a second fill ex-bourbon barrel. So at 59.4%. So a great whiskey to really wet your palate and to kind of kick things off and like get this going. So let's start with that. So if you have it, pour it in your glass. And I'd love to know, what you're getting in the glass and what you're tasting. And we can compare notes and it'll be fun. So off. Oh, this is such like a classic, beautiful Speyside whiskey. I actually tasted this last night with my husband, and this was one that we really enjoyed because I think the thing about this particular whiskey is it smells like a distillery. Like when you first get that initial kind of aroma that fills your nose, I'm getting like beautiful like vanilla and molasses, and then there's like a crystallized sugar like little hug that's wrapped up all those flavors or those aromas. And I'm getting more, like the more that my nose is in this glass, the more that I'm getting those really malty, like Barney distillery. Like when you walk into a distillery, if you've ever walked into a distillery and you just get hit with that, like in the parking lot, you get hit with it. You get hit with that just big rush of malt, explosion to your nose. that's what I'm really getting in this glass. And you have to really kind of dig into it. So you really take your time with it. But once you kind of get past those vanilla, molasses, kind of sugary, aromas on the top, you really can find those like malty gems hiding underneath there. So that's what I really love about this is that kind of malt forward approach. Pickly Dew from DC, hello. Glad to see you here. So again, this is very malt forward for me on the nose. So I'm going to taste it and, see how it goes on palate. So cheers. It's always weird tasting whiskey when you don't have anyone here to like in person watch you make all kind of your crazy faces and sounds of when you're sipping whiskey. Ooh. So for this one, I'm getting, again, this is a malt bomb for me. I'm getting a lot of those big malty, just grainy. It's like very cereal forward. And I think there's a few reasons why this particular whiskey could be, more on the cereal forward side. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But I wanted to talk about the cask on this. I get asked a lot of questions about, what first fill, second fill, barrel, hogshead, what all of that kind of means. And so with each whiskey, we're going to kind of touch on those little nuances and, what exactly a hogshead is and what a butt is and all of that good stuff. So this particular whiskey was aged in a second fill ex-bourbon barrel. So bourbon barrels are the most commonly used barrels in the Scotch whiskey industry, and that's largely due to supply and demand. So, with bourbon, you can only use the new charred American oak cask one time. Just one time, it's a one and done deal, and then they can't use them again. So those end up going all the way over to Scotland, and that is why a large majority, I think the last stat I read, the number was around 90% of Scotch whiskey that's aging in Scotland is all in ex-bourbon barrels. So because we have such a huge demand for whiskey and for Scotch whiskey and for bourbon, there's a large amount of casks that are being made, and those are going over to Scotland. So again, second fill ex-bourbon barrel. So a barrel is right at 200 liters, made of new charred American oak, which is also known as Quercus alba. And this is where you really get a lot of those vanilla, coconut, butterscotch, a lot of those kind of classic bourbony notes are what kind of impart into the whiskey when there is new make spirit put in it. And so I'm definitely getting some of that on here. Again, this is a second fill. So what second fill means is this is the second time that new make spirit, malted new make spirit, has gone into the barrel. So when it first comes over from the United States or Kentucky or wherever the bourbon was made here in the States, once it goes over and the first new make spirit that gets put in it is your first fill. So when you see something that says first fill, that means that's the first time that it has held malted new make spirit. And second fill is, you got it, the second time that new make spirit has been put into the cask. And then sometimes you'll also see them labeled as refill ex-bourbon or refill cask. And that can be the second time, or sometimes it's the third, or basically it's the second time and forward that that cask has been used to age malted new make spirit. So I'm not getting a lot of that cask influence on the palate. As much as I'm getting it on the nose. I'm definitely getting that kind of vanilla-y, bourbony, classic, coconutty, type of notes on the nose. But on the palate, it's definitely more malt forward for me. It tastes like a distillery, and I love that because those are some of my favorite places to be. Being inside of a distillery is a really special experience, and if any of you out there have been in a distillery, I'd love to know, maybe what your favorite ones were. But I remember the first time I ever walked into a Scotch whiskey distillery and just being hit with that beautiful aroma of malt. And this whiskey definitely kind of transports me back to that time and into that place. So again, this is 12.35, an 8-year Speyside and a second fill ex-bourbon barrel at 59.4% ABV. And it is called Meringues Floating Over Gardens. And I believe this is actually still available in our shop. So if you just go to SMWSA and browse the shop, I want to say that this one is still available. But yeah, this is really beautiful. really a great whiskey to kind of kickstart a tasting and to, bring a Tuesday to an end. So yeah, I'm really into this one. I'm gonna taste it one more time. Mm, so fantastic. So throughout this little class, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to add them in, and I will see if I can answer them. And if I can't, then I will go on a mission to find an answer and get back to you. So again, anything that comes up, feel free to chime in and ask away. So, all right. So number one, done. I'm ready to move on to number two. So if you are ready to move on to number two, let's do it. So number two is the only non-Speyside whiskey that we are going to taste today. And this is a 12-year Highland whiskey. And this is Cask 68.32, which is called a perfect pairing. And the notes on this were aromas of forget-me-not aromatic oil followed by spicy ginger, diluted. We enjoyed an afternoon in a bar. So I'm just kind of imagining myself in a bar in the Highlands, taking in that beautiful, crisp Scottish air and enjoying a beautiful Highland whiskey. So this is at 57.2% ABV, and this is in a refill ex-bourbon hogshead. So the question I get the most about cask types is, what is a hogshead? It's kind of a funny name, and I think there's a bar in Harry Potter named the Hogshead. I don't know. I'm not really, quizzed well in all of that stuff, but the hogshead is the best way that I can really describe what a hogshead is it's kind of like a Frankenstein cask in a way. So it is basically a bunch of bourbon barrel staves that have been broken down and rebuilt to a bigger size to hold more whiskey. So a bourbon barrel is at 200 liters, where a hogshead is at 250 liters. And so it's just a little bit bigger, but you're getting less interaction with wood because it's, the barrel's bigger. So that ratio, that liquid to wood ratio, is a little different, and the interaction is a little less than it would be in a smaller barrel. So typically in those smaller barrels, you're getting faster maturation process and more intensified flavors. So a refill ex-bourbon hogshead, meaning that this is the second or third or however many times that this has held new make malted spirit. So, all right, 68.32. Oh, so good. So Richie, I'm going to answer a question while I'm kind of digging my nose in here. Richie, hello, asked if SMWS bottles will eventually make their way onto store shelves. No, that is not in the agenda to my knowledge. So the only way that you're able to get these bottles and to taste these is if you are a member of the society. So yeah, so if you want to get your hands on any of these and you're interested in joining, we'd be happy to have you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So please feel free to reach out at any time. Oh, and John Wood, it's Hogsmeade, Hogshead, Hogsmeade. I was close. I was close. So yeah, so again, a hogshead is a little bit bigger than a bourbon barrel. Bourbon barrels being at 200, a hogshead's at 250 liters, and it is basically just a Frankenstein cask of all of these different bourbon staves to create a bigger cask, which gives you less interaction with the wood. So, I get like that beautiful kind of Highland smoke that just, it's there. That's the first thing I smell, is that just beautiful, like faintly aromatic smoke that you get with a lot of those Highland whiskeys. And it's funny because when I was getting into peated whiskeys, Highland whiskeys were actually kind of a great gateway into, developing my palate to be more responsive and acceptive of those big Isla kind of, peat bombs. So yeah, this is beautiful. I'm getting that almost like a candied bacon. Yeah, there's like a candied a candied quality, and then there's a smoked quality. So I'm just kind of thinking of those two things coming together as candied bacon. But yeah, this is fun. The nose on this is really beautiful. So if anybody has this out there, yeah, I would love to know what you think as well. All right, I'm tasting it. Mm. Again, that is that faint kind of whisper of smoke is kind of just is like a big wave over your palate at first, and as it kind of evolves on your palate, it gets a little more, you know, like malty, and there's like a nuttiness to this that I'm trying to kind of pinpoint what that is. There's like a warmness about it, like a warm nuttiness about it. And the interesting thing about this particular distillery is, a lot of things kind of contribute to flavor in whiskey. A lot of, I've heard the number of, 60 to 80% of the flavor that comes from the cask. I've heard that number kind of, you know, really bounce to every spectrum. I've heard it as low as 50%, and I've heard it as high as 80% of the whiskey's flavor comes from the cask. But I think there's so many other things that go into that overall flavor of a whiskey. And one of those things is fermentation. And this particular whiskey I know uses a cloudy wort. So the wort is essentially the liquid that's extracted from the mashing process. And so when that wort goes over to be into fermentation, the wort is cloudy, meaning that there's more husk and more flour from the barley. So you're getting those more kind of nuttier profiles. So that nutty malty character that I'm finding in here could be from the fermentation or the cloudy wort that then goes to be fermented. So that's just one other, thing that you can really dive into and really go down the rabbit hole. And that brings, a lot of flavor into the whiskey. So it's not just the wood, it's not just the grain. It's so many things that kind of come together to, create all of these really beautiful flavors. So so the refill ex-bourbon hogshead, I'm not getting like massive wood notes or oak notes, or I don't feel like this has a huge wood influence. And, when I first got into whiskey, I think I was always looking for that, like looking for those big kind of more wood influenced whiskeys. And, the more I get into this and the more that my palate continues to grow, I'm finding that I really do enjoy these more malt forward, whiskeys to really taste like the raw ingredient, to taste the whiskey in its, just rawest form. And, I think that's what the purpose of this bundle was, to kind of highlight that. And it's been a lot of fun to really kind of dig into those whiskeys that, don't have heavy, wood influence or double maturation. So I don't know if that comes with time, or if, that's something that people just off the bat always love. But I think, my exposure to having New Make Spirit and to having, tasting, the distiller's beer and, all of that stuff, I think it's really kind of opened my palate to a lot of, different little just nuances of whiskey that I've really enjoyed. So again, not a lot of, wood influence on this one. Again, more malt forward and that kind of nutty profile, that smoky nutty profile. And that could, again, be from the fermentation process of that cloudy wort. So hi, George. This is 68.32, a perfect pairing. And it is a 12-year Highland at 57.2% ABV. So there she is. I don't know if my camera's good. Oh, there we go. So this is just one of those beautiful classic Highland whiskeys. So if you're into that little slight smokiness, yeah, this would be a great one. So, all right, taste it one more time, just for good measure. Yeah, that's like a nice departure from those kind of big peat bombs that I love so much. This is a really nice end of day, sun's going down, summer kind of whiskey. So yes, George, 1.219. We will be tasting that today. That will be the last whiskey that we are tasting today. So if any of you out there have that, yeah, grab it and we'll taste it together. So, all right, so 2 down. So we've learned so far what a hogshead is. And again, that is a Frankenstein cask of sorts where it is a bunch of bourbon barrels that are kind of broken down, and those staves are rebuilt into a bigger size of 250 liters to hold more whiskey. And we have learned that refill is the second or third or anything beyond second time that a cask has held new make malted spirit. And all right, so number 3. Let's do it. Number 3. Let me make sure I haven't missed any questions as I'm just over here gabbing away about whiskey. Let's see. So Andrew asked, how often does the SMWS manipulate the whiskey after they purchase it from a distillery as opposed to buying it that way and just letting it mature? So we, have the privilege really of having access to a lot of amazing cask. And so, that's a great question. I don't know with these particular whiskeys if we have moved these into other casks. So I would have to find that out. But we do have an abundance of casks that are aging in the warehouse. And I know that, our team over there in the UK is, really just out to put out some really beautiful whiskeys. And I know that they are experimenting all the time and working hard to make sure that everything that gets put into these bottles is just of the highest quality and, ready to be enjoyed. So I would have to dig into that and find that out for you. So, all right. Let's dig into number 3. And this is a fun one too. All right, so number 3 is cask number 64.114. And this is a 13-year Speyside in a refill ex-bourbon hogshead. So same cask as the one that we just tasted. And this is called Exuberant Bounty of Fruit. And this is at 56% ABV. And the notes on this are nose, lemon meringue pie, sold, Turkish Delight, flying saucers. I'm not sure what flying saucers taste like. I really can't remember the last time I gave one of those a good whiff. So I can't really help you on that one. But palate, notes of plum tart, blood orange sorbet, honey, lemon puffs, and oak. So just on the tasting notes alone on this one, I'm sold. Like I'm so interested in knowing if I can really dig out any of, these aromas and these, kind of flavor profiles. So this will be fun. So, let me show you the bottle. So Exuberant Bounty of Fruit, 64.114. Let's see if I can figure that out. All right. And, all right. See, this is like way different than the one we just tasted. The one we just tasted kind of had like more, it felt more heavy on the nose, if that makes sense. This one is just a little bit brighter and, crisper and more alive on the nose. Whew. So for this one, I don't know if anyone out there eats red vines. I know my mom was like always like Twizzlers only, would never eat red vines. Actually never had a red vine until I met my husband because my mom she's like a diehard Twizzlers fan. So those were the only, ones that I ever had as a kid, just because she loves them so much. But my husband loves red vines. And I remember the first time, like the barrel of red vines, I remember pulling that top open and just getting it's like you get punched with that aroma of that can only be red vines. And so that's what this whiskey smells like to me. It is a tub of red vines. I'm getting, there is like a slight tanginess to this. And I wonder if that's why they wrote the blood orange sorbet. There is like a citrus tang on the nose of this. And Matt Bailey's here. He is ambassador extraordinaire out there in beautiful Australia. So hello, Matt. It's lovely that you're here. I hope all is well out in Australia. Yeah, I'm getting just a burst of red vines. I can't get past the red vine note. There's like a tangy, like citrus note. Yeah, it's very fruity. So the name so far suits it on the nose. So super fruit forward. It is literally fruit leather in liquid form. This is just an explosion of plum and like cherry. It's like tart fruit leather, not like a fruit roll up, like actual fruit leather, like the Trader Joe's fruit leather versus, a fruit roll up fruit leather. But yeah, definitely those red fruits. Gosh, that is like really explosive and juicy. And I mean, that is just an explosion of fruit on the palate. That's a lot of fun. And this particular distillery, which was built or opened in, I believe, 1971, they use a clear wort and long fermentation. So the whiskey that we had before this, the 68.32, they used a cloudy wort, which gives you kind of those nutty and malty profiles. And this particular distillery uses, has long fermentations, which gives you a lot of those fruity esters that you get in a lot of whiskeys, and clear wort, which in turn gives you more of those fruit forward profiles. So that could be a reason that we're kind of tasting those profiles in this whiskey, in these whiskeys. So if you can't find this one on the website, I'd have to go through. I don't know if Ben is in the chat and he can kind of chime in, but I would have to look and see which ones are available. I think the 12.35 is, at least when the last I checked, but these 4 particular whiskeys were in a bundle from our June Outturn. And so I'm not sure if that particular one is left on the website, to my knowledge. I would have to go in and check for you. But if anybody wants to email me at jenne@smwsa.com, I'd be happy to look for you and see if we do indeed have any. So yeah, this is just a massive, explosive fruit bomb. And again, that could be from those long fermentation times, which give you those big fruit forward esters, whereas short fermentations give you more of that nutty kind of malty profile. So Jennifer Wren is here. She is also known as my whiskey fairy godmother. She has taught me so much about whiskey and has, enriched my life in so many ways I can't even begin to say. And yeah, so if you have any questions about whiskey, she's also a great source of whiskey knowledge. So hi, Jen. So yeah, this one may not be available. So Ben did chime in. He's here. 12.35 and 1.219 are currently available on the website. So those are 2 out of the 4 of the whiskeys that we're tasting today. So if any of those kind of sounded like they would strike your fancy, you can jump on over to smwsa.com and they should be in the shop. So All right, I'm gonna give this one more go. And one thing I wanted to point out about the first 3 whiskeys that we did taste is the color on them. They've all been really kind of the same color, very light, that kind of pale, kind of, it's like lemon water, that kind of just beautiful pale color. All 3 of them actually are very close in color. So I don't think that they've had, by taste, I would say they wouldn't have heavy wood influence. And also by color, I can see that that wood influence hasn't been huge, with these being refill and second fill. So a great way to kind of think of that first fill, second fill, refill is kind of like a tea bag. So let's say that, you have 1 tea bag to make tea throughout the whole day. Your first batch of tea is going to be the strongest because you're going to be able to really pull out a lot of, the flavor in that tea bag. Whereas your second round of tea is going to be a little more diluted. Your third round of tea, as you go on, it's going to be less powerful in flavor. And that's kind of the way I like to think of the first fill, second fill, refill scheme is kind of like tea bags. So, all right, let's see. Questions. Let's see. Once live events can resume, can we still do these for us who can't make the events? Yes. So, with us all being home, we've been really kind of amping up our virtual tastings, and we do plan on, keeping that up and, keep using this as a great way for us to connect and to share whiskey. So yes, once events do kind of, resume and we can go back out to the world, we will be sure to continue with our virtual tastings and events as well. So don't fret on that. We're not going anywhere. Can't get rid of us yet. All right, number 4. I'm ready. I hope you are too. So number 4 is a 10-year Speyside, and this is in a refill Ex Oloroso butt. So butts are huge. They are 500 liters, and if you've ever been in a distillery and seen one, they're huge. It's kind of crazy to think that, inside of those that's a lot of whiskey. 500 liters of whiskey it's a lot. So this is, again, a 10-year Speyside in a refill Ex Oloroso butt at 64.3% ABV. So this is the highest ABV of the 4 that we're tasting today. And this particular one is available in the shop. So if this sounds, like something that you would enjoy, it is available for you to purchase. So this is called Dessert Triptych Petrichor Brulee. And the notes on this are heat, aromas of fruits, potent spiciness, and the forgiving kiss of eucalyptus and menthol oils. Hot and cold, potent and sweet, a mesmeric pudding dram. Anytime I see, notes of eucalyptus or menthol or any of that kind of minty, earthy kind of tones, I get pretty excited. So I was pretty stoked to have this one in the lineup. So, and so Richie asked if we have any plans on releasing any Indian single malt whiskeys, and we have done those in the past. I believe 134 is one of the big Indian whiskeys that we have put together, and I want to say we may have one of those left, kind of hiding somewhere. And so if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, reach out or give us a call and we'll take a look and see if that's something that we have available. So, all right. So number 4, last but not least, again, 10-year Speyside and refill Ex Oloroso butt. So refill could be 3rd time, 2nd time, 5th time, 12th time. I don't think they typically use them that long, but as you can see from the color, if you can see that, it's not super dark. Sometimes when you get those big sherry bombs or you get full maturation in a sherry butt, you're getting that really rich, beautiful, deep almost like mahogany color. But this one it's still pretty light. So again, with that refill, much like the tea bag, you may not be getting a lot of that influence on the spirit from the actual wood. So, so this smells like yams to me. This is like candied nuts, candied pecans, or like a brittle, like a toffee brittle underneath like a bed of like sweet potato souffle. That is so fantastic. That is literally sweet potato souffle with candied nuts and like a big dollop of whipped cream on top. Yeah, there is that beautiful, just kind of nuttiness that you get from the Oloroso. But man, the nose on this is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I could sit here and smell this all day. Like if they made a candle that smelled like this, I would be burning it all the time. It's fantastic. And there's almost like a, it's so funny when you nose a whiskey, when I'm home or when I'm really trying to get into a whiskey for the first time, I really try and sit and take my time with the nose, because you can take one little whiff of it and you get notes A, B, and C. But if you really take your time and you really get in there, notes of C, D, and E come out. Like it's just, there's so many notes kind of hiding underneath that initial wave of aromas. So when you nose a whiskey, if you can take your time, I do highly recommend just taking your time. This is just like developing into like there's almost like a black tea, like a cup of like English breakfast tea. Like I'm getting notes of that. And then there's like faint sweetness, like that candy nut, like candied pecans. Yeah, that's a really beautiful nose. All right, I guess it's time to taste it. So, that is 64.3%. So there is some zestiness to this whiskey, but there's like a beautiful, like savory and dry, like earthiness to it. But then like up behind it, like after that's kind of subsided, you get this like a very faint wave of sweetness. And it's really beautiful. This is one of those whiskeys that really evolves both on the nose and the palate. So in kind of taking my time and smelling that whiskey and really taking it in, you really just are able to dig out so many different aromas. And on the palate, it's the same way. At first you get that rush, and then you get like that little hug of sweetness that comes kind of at the back end. And that's that eucalyptus note I'm really hunting for. But I guess the way that like menthol, or like when you have a cough drop and your mouth feels cold, this whiskey kind of gives you that kind of sensation so maybe that's where the eucalyptus note is coming in, is you get that sensation of like menthol or mint on your palate. And that's like kind of an all over the place. I call that a roller coaster whiskey, where it just really evolves and kind of goes all over the place. But that is really beautiful. And again, refill X Oloroso butt. So this is a 500-liter barrel made from Spanish oak, versus the American oak, the Quercus alba, that the first three were made from. That is so beautiful. I have to really sit and take my time with this one tonight. So yeah, that one's really stellar. I'm gonna wait and sit with this one later tonight. That's like a end of the day, just, relaxing, after the end of a long day or end of a long week. That's a great whiskey to kind of celebrate the end of the day with. So to kind of recap, I'll kind of look through and make sure I didn't miss any questions. And we'll do a quick recap of everything that we tasted and kind of dropping in some of those, little morsels of information. So let me just do a quick little. All right, I think Ben's here, so he's kind of tasting. He's not tasting. Well, maybe he is, but he's kind of getting to all the questions. So Steve asked, which is your favorite of the ones tasted today? It's kind of hard to pick a favorite, just because they're all so unique in their own way. That sounds so like a staged answer, but it's so true because, they all are so expressive. It's hard to pick, and there's so many things that, you could pick a favorite based on your mood or how your day went or the weather, or, there's so many things that go into play, when it comes to selecting a whiskey to taste. But I don't know. That's a hard answer. I don't know if I can answer that. I think they're all really beautiful in their own way. I think, 1.219, it just really is like more on that decadent side. And, it makes me think of the holidays and being with people, which I miss desperately. So maybe today in this mood, where I'm yearning to be with my family and with people, that one definitely does that. So it definitely gives you that feeling of being together. So, all right. So let's do a quick recap. The first one we tasted, again, 12.35 Meringues Floating Over Gardens. And this one is available in the shop. And this is an 8-year Speyside, second fill ex-bourbon barrel at 59.4% ABV. Again, this one's very malt forward, not, huge cask influence. So you're really kind of tasting that whiskey in its kind of raw form in a sense. And so if that's something that you really enjoy, then this is like the perfect whiskey for that. Again, it's beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful whiskey. And the second one we tasted was 68.32, which was a 12-year Highland. This one kind of had more of that smoky whisper to it. And this was in a refill ex-bourbon hogshead, otherwise known as the Frankenstein cask, as I call it. And that one was at 57.2% ABV. And then the third one was 64.114, Exuberant Bounty of Fruit. And that is a 13-year Speyside in a refill ex-bourbon hogshead. And that one's at 56% ABV. And the last one was 1.219. And this was a 10-year Speyside in a refill ex-Oloroso butt. So this was kind of your more sherry bomb, but not a sherry bomb, because it's not a sherry bomb because there's not a lot of wood influence here. And this one was at 64.3% ABV. And that one too is available on the website. So of the four, 12.35 and 1.219, you can still pick up and enjoy yourselves. And yeah, so, there's, again, to kind of recap this, there's so many factors that go into flavor that, make each whiskey what it is, whether that's cask influence, whether that's, fermentation time, but those long fermentations typically giving you those, fruity ester profiles, and those short fermentation times giving you those more nutty, malty profiles, whether the wort is clear or cloudy, whether those husk and a lot of that flour is going over into fermentation. There's so many little things that contribute to flavor. And I think of these four, you're really able to taste the whiskey in its rawest form. And that's what I really love about that. In my current journey right now, I'm really into those profiles, and I'm really into those more malt forward whiskeys, where I don't know if I would have been 3 years ago. But where I am now, I'm definitely enjoying these and tasting whiskey, as close as I can to, being in a distillery and tasting it off the still, or tasting that new make spirit off the still, or kind of tasting those experimental whiskeys that haven't quite hit that 3-year mark. But again, if you have any questions, that you wake up in your sleep and forgot to ask, or anything like that, please feel free to reach out. You can email me at jenne@smwsa.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, or you can always pick up the phone and give us a call, and we'd be happy to help. So I guess with that, if there aren't any last minute questions, we'll kind of wrap this up. Again, tomorrow, my colleague Zach will be giving a masterclass on the Tastemaker bundle, which highlights all of our more double maturation and 4 whiskeys that have seen 2 different types of cask. And then Ben will be back on Thursday to talk about all different types of peat throughout the many regions of Scotland. And so that one should be fun. I know he's got some great whiskeys in there too. And then on Friday, if you're around at 12 o'clock Eastern time, I will be interviewing the head distiller of Waterford Distillery. And we're going to be talking all things terroir and biodynamics. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I actually went there last year, and they are some of the coolest people I have had the chance to meet in this industry. And it will be a lot of fun. Ned is amazing, and he's a lot of fun, and he has a lot of information to share with us. So if you're around, come join us for that. And with that, I will say goodbye, and thank you all so much for coming and hanging out and talking whiskey with me, or listening to me talk whiskey. And I'm really grateful to be here, especially the world is a kind of a crazy place right now, and to be able to take an hour out of the day to sit here and talk whiskey and be surrounded by great people is really fantastic. And I feel very blessed to do it. So thank you all so much for being here. And Michael, to answer your question, Waterford is in Waterford, Ireland. So come and join us on Friday, and you can find out more. So, all right, guys, good night or good morning, wherever in the world you are. And I hope you all are well, and I will see you soon. Bye.